Paralyzed Green Beret whispered one word. The nurse turned pale after recognizing his secret. No one at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center believed the man in room 507 would ever speak again. The neurosurgeons called him a complete spinal injury. The administrators called him another impossible case draining military resources. The therapists stopped asking him questions because his eyes never answered the way they expected. Only one quiet nurse still greeted him every morning as though he were simply waiting for the right moment. Her name was Emily Carter. And when the silent Green Beret finally whispered one broken word that nobody in the room recognized, she nearly dropped the medication tray. Falcon. It wasn't a nickname. It wasn't a random memory. It was her call sign. A name buried beneath classified missions, folded flags, and a promise she had made 6 years earlier to never wear that identity again. Before we begin, welcome to the channel. If stories about courage, sacrifice, and impossible second chances inspire you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and tell us where you're watching from. Every comment reminds us how far these stories travel. He's done. Dr. Benjamin Holt spoke quietly enough that he thought the patient couldn't hear him. He survived. That's the victory. The residents surrounding the bed nodded without asking questions. On the hospital bed lay Master Sergeant Ethan Cross, 41 years old. Former Army Special Forces. Decorated 11 times. Recipient of the Silver Star. 6 months earlier he had led hostage rescues across 3 continents. Now he couldn't lift a finger. The ventilator no longer breathed for him, but every other movement required someone else's hands. His dark eyes remained fixed on the ceiling. They never wandered. They never pleaded. They simply watched. Emily stood beside the medication cart, checking his chart for the 3rd time that morning. Blood pressure fluctuations. Night sweats. Episodes of unexplained bradycardia. None of it fit the official diagnosis. Dr. Holt closed the electronic chart. No meaningful neurological recovery. He turned toward the residents. We'll continue supportive therapy until long-term placement becomes available. One resident hesitated. Doctor. Nurse Carter documented repeated autonomic instability during neck positioning. Holt didn't even look at the chart. I've read her notes. And? They're observations. Emily raised her eyes. They're patterns. Silence. Several therapists slowly stopped writing. Holt smiled politely. A pattern doesn't replace imaging. No. Emily answered calmly. But it can tell us the imaging missed something. Nobody spoke. Everyone on the rehabilitation floor knew Benjamin Holt. He was brilliant. He published constantly. He never admitted mistakes. He disliked nurses who thought beyond checklists. Especially Emily. He stepped closer. Miss Carter. Yes, doctor? You've worked here barely a year. Correct. I've spent 23 years treating spinal trauma. I know. So explain why you think you've discovered something every specialist somehow overlooked. Emily met his eyes. Because every episode happens after his cervical spine is extended. Holt laughed softly. You think adjusting a pillow changes spinal cord physiology? I think his body keeps telling us the same story. Another resident shifted awkwardly. No one interrupted. Ethan blinked once. Then twice. Emily noticed. No one else did. She leaned slightly toward him. His breathing changed. Just enough. Holt sighed. You seek communication because you want to. Emily didn't answer. She simply adjusted Ethan's pillow by less than an inch. Within seconds, his pulse climbed from 44 to 58. The cardiac monitor reflected it immediately. One resident frowned. That's coincidence. Holt interrupted. Emily kept watching Ethan instead. His eyes finally moved. Not toward the monitor. Toward her. She recognized that look. Focused. Calculating. Military. The same expression she'd seen countless times before helicopters lifted off into darkness. Only one person had ever looked at her exactly like that. A wounded team leader pinned beneath collapsed concrete outside Aleppo. 6 years ago. She pushed the memory away. Different man. Different war. Different life. Holt turned toward the doorway. Let's move on. As everyone prepared to leave, a whisper escaped Ethan's throat. So weak that only Emily heard it. She bent closer. What was that? His lips trembled. Again. Foul. She leaned until her ear almost touched his mouth. Falcon. Everything inside her stopped. Not because she recognized the word. Because nobody outside one classified task force should have known it. Falcon. Her operational call sign. Retired. Buried. Forgotten. Her heartbeat doubled. Slowly. Very slowly. She looked back into Ethan's eyes. He was staring directly at her. Not confused. Not hallucinating. Recognizing. Emily whispered before she could stop herself. Guardian? Ethan's eyes instantly filled with tears. One blink. Affirmative. The room suddenly felt too small. Holt turned around. What did he say? Emily remained silent. The doctor frowned. Nurse? She straightened. He attempted communication. What word? Emily hesitated. Then shook her head. It isn't in his medical record. Holt crossed his arms. Then it isn't relevant. Ethan tried speaking again. Nothing came out except broken air. His pulse climbed rapidly. Emily reached for his wrist. It's okay. His eyes never left hers. For 6 years. He had believed Falcon was dead. For 6 years. Emily had believed everyone from Operation Iron Horizon either disappeared or was ordered never to contact each other again. Yet here he was. Alive. Broken. Looking at her as though rescue had finally arrived. Holt stepped between them. This interaction is over. Emily's voice remained calm. He knows me. He has severe neurological trauma. He recognized my call sign. The room froze. One resident looked up sharply. Holt stared. You're what? Emily realized too late what she'd admitted. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Then Holt smiled. I think you've become emotionally involved with a patient. No. She answered quietly. I think someone forgot to tell you who he really is. Nobody spoke. The cardiac monitor filled the silence with steady electronic beeps while every pair of eyes shifted between Emily Carter and Dr. Benjamin Holt. Holt broke the silence first. I think you've crossed a professional boundary. Emily never looked away from Ethan. I don't think so. You admitted you know the patient. I admitted he knows me. Same difference. No. Her answer was calm. It isn't. Holt folded his arms. Explain. I can't. You won't. I legally can't. That answer irritated him even more. There are no classified exceptions inside my neurological ward. Emily finally turned toward him. There are when the Department of Defense says there are. Several residents exchanged uncertain glances. Nobody expected that response. Holt laughed once. Convenient. Ethan's breathing suddenly became faster. Emily noticed before anyone else. His chest rose unevenly. Sweat formed along his forehead. The heart monitor climbed. 72. 78. 86. His body wasn't panicking. It was trying to tell them something. Emily stepped beside the bed. Ethan. His eyes locked onto hers. What do you need? His lips barely moved. Again. No sound. She leaned closer. One blink for yes. Blink. Two for no. Nothing. Are you in pain? Blink. Neck? Blink. Worse when they moved you this morning? Blink. One resident quietly whispered. He's answering. Holt shook his head. Confirmation bias. Emily ignored him. She gently placed 2 fingers beneath Ethan's neck. The support cushion had shifted again. Only slightly. Enough to extend the cervical spine. She carefully lifted his head less than half an inch. Neutral alignment. The monitor changed almost immediately. Heart rate. 86. 79. 71. Blood pressure stabilized. Nobody said a word. Respiratory therapist Lisa Monroe stared at the screen. That's impossible. Emily answered softly. No. It's physiology. Holt walked closer. This proves nothing. It proves positioning matters. It proves coincidence. It proves you should order another MRI. His jaw tightened. I already have imaging. 6 months old. Still valid. For 6-month-old injuries. Ethan blinked rapidly. Emily understood. He was trying to interrupt. What? His lips struggled. Down. What? Below. Emily frowned. What happened below? Stairs. Fragments. Disconnected. But not random. Memory. Not confusion. Holt sighed dramatically. Classic traumatic speech recovery. Emily didn't agree. Special Forces operators didn't waste words. If Ethan chose stairs, there was a reason. A young resident named Marcus slowly stepped forward. Doctor. What? What if Nurse Carter is right? Holt looked at him. You've been here 4 weeks. Yes. I've been a neurosurgeon for 23 years. Marcus lowered his eyes. Yes, sir. Then trust experience. Emily quietly said. Experience should recognize when it stops explaining the evidence. The room became painfully silent. Holt's expression hardened. You've challenged my judgment enough. He pointed toward the hallway. You're removed from this patient. Ethan's pulse jumped instantly. 100. 108. His breathing became shallow. Emily didn't move. He understands what you're saying. He understands nothing. He absolutely does. You are emotionally attached. No. She answered. He trusts me. Before Holt could respond, the monitor screamed. Heart rate dropped. 108. 92. 74. 58. Lisa looked at the screen. Oh God. Marcus stepped backward. Doctor. Holt reached for Ethan's shoulder. Emily grabbed his wrist. Don't. Everyone froze. You don't grab physicians. You don't move unstable cervical patients. Their eyes met. Neither blinked. Holt slowly pulled free. Fine. You think you know everything? No. Emily answered. I know this. She slid one hand beneath Ethan's neck, supporting every vertebra. Marcus. Yes. Rapid response. Lisa. Prepare atropine. Another nurse. Call neurosurgery. Holt shouted. Nobody moves. Nobody listened. Something in Emily's voice had changed. It wasn't louder. It wasn't angry. It carried certainty. Military certainty. The kind people obeyed before realizing they already had. Within seconds the hallway filled with footsteps. Critical care nurse Angela Brooks entered first. What happened? Emily answered immediately. Possible autonomic collapse following cervical extension. Angela looked once at the monitor. Heart rate. 38. Blood pressure. 80/46. She didn't argue. What do you need? Maintain neutral alignment. Oxygen. Atropine ready. Angela nodded. Done. Holt stepped forward again. I haven't authorized medication. Angela didn't even look at him. I don't need authorization to prevent a cardiac arrest. She administered the drug. 41. 46. 53. The numbers slowly climbed. Marcus whispered. It's working. Emily never celebrated. Not yet. She kept supporting Ethan's head with both hands, as though letting go would undo everything. 5 minutes later. The elevator doors opened. Dr. Sarah Whitmore, Chief of Military Neurosurgery. She entered carrying Ethan's old scans. What emergency justifies pulling me out of surgery? Nobody answered immediately. Angela pointed toward Emily. Ask her. Whitmore looked at the young nurse. What do you think is happening? Emily took one slow breath. I think everyone has been treating a 6-month-old MRI instead of the man lying in front of us. Whitmore studied Ethan. Then the monitor. Then Emily. Finally she asked the question that changed everything. If you're right, why are you so certain? Emily looked down at Ethan. His exhausted eyes remained fixed on hers. Then she answered quietly. Because 6 years ago, I watched him survive something that should have killed him. And this isn't the man I rescued. The room became completely silent. Dr. Sarah Whitmore looked from Emily to Ethan and back again. You rescued him? Emily didn't answer immediately. Some memories never became easier to speak aloud. They told us the records were sealed, Whitmore said. They are. Then how do you know this patient? Emily glanced at Ethan. His eyes never left hers. She sighed. Because 6 years ago, I was there. Dr. Holt folded his arms. This is becoming absurd. Whitmore ignored him. Everyone except Dr. Holt stays. The residents remained frozen. Holt frowned. Sarah, this isn't necessary. It is now. Whitmore stepped toward Ethan's bed. Master Sergeant Cross. Blink once if you recognize Nurse Carter. 1 blink. Blink once if you've known her before this hospitalization. 1 blink. Marcus whispered. My God. Whitmore continued. Blink once if she saved your life. Another blink. Nobody spoke. The evidence was becoming impossible to dismiss. Holt tried anyway. Recognition doesn't change the diagnosis. Emily calmly replied. No. But it changes who can communicate with him. Whitmore nodded. I agree. Holt stared at her. You're taking this seriously? I'm taking my patient seriously. She picked up Emily's handwritten notes from the bedside chart. 7 consecutive days. Blood pressure changes. Heart rate drops. Neck positioning. Pain responses. Blink communication. Every page carried the same signature. Emily Carter, RN. Whitmore slowly closed the folder. Why weren't these escalated? Marcus quietly answered. They were. Whitmore looked at him. To whom? Marcus swallowed. Dr. Holt. Silence. Whitmore turned toward Holt. You reviewed these? I did. And ignored them? They were nursing observations. Emily spoke softly. They were warnings. Whitmore looked at Ethan. His breathing had stabilized. Heart rate 62. Color returning to his face. Only because Emily still supported his neck exactly where it needed to be. Whitmore crouched beside the bed. Ethan. His eyes shifted toward her. I'm going to ask simple questions. One blink means yes. He blinked. Do you understand where you are? Blink. Are you thinking clearly? Blink. Does moving your neck make everything worse? Blink. Whitmore looked at Emily. What exactly happened 6 years ago? Emily hesitated. I can't discuss classified operations. Whitmore leaned closer. I'm not asking about missions. I'm asking about him. Emily looked at Ethan for several long seconds. Finally she answered. There was an explosion. In northern Syria. Our extraction helicopter arrived late because of weather. The building collapsed. Ethan stayed behind. To cover civilians. Marcus listened without breathing. He should have died. Emily continued. When we reached him, he had a cervical injury. But he was still giving orders. Her voice softened. He refused evacuation until every child was aboard first. Ethan closed his eyes. The memory hurt. Whitmore noticed. You remember. One blink. Emily smiled sadly. You were impossible. A tiny movement appeared at the corner of Ethan's mouth. Not quite a smile. Enough. Marcus saw it first. Did he just? Emily nodded. Yes. Whitmore looked amazed. Holt's chart says no voluntary facial activity. Emily answered quietly. Then the chart is wrong. Dr. Holt finally lost his patience. Enough. This has become emotional storytelling. There is still no clinical evidence. Whitmore stood. There will be. She turned toward the charge nurse. I want an emergency dynamic cervical MRI. Holt immediately objected. Denied. Whitmore looked at him. You don't have authority to deny my order. I absolutely do. This patient belongs to my service. Whitmore's expression hardened. Not anymore. The room froze. What? I am assuming temporary neurological command. Holt laughed. Based on what? Based on the fact that your patient nearly coded because nobody listened to the nurse. Nobody defended him. Not even his own residents. Whitmore looked at Emily. Can you accompany him? Emily hesitated. If that's appropriate. It isn't optional. Ethan blinked once. Whitmore smiled. I believe he agrees. Transport arrived minutes later. The stretcher rolled slowly into the hallway. Veterans sitting outside therapy rooms quietly watched. Some wore prosthetic legs. Others leaned on walkers. Several recognized Ethan. A retired Marine raised 2 fingers in salute. Ethan couldn't return it. Emily gently squeezed the bed rail. I'll salute for both of us. His eyes softened. As they approached the elevators, a deep voice echoed down the corridor. Hold that transport. Everyone turned. 2 men in dark suits walked toward them. One wore the insignia of the Department of Defense. The other carried a leather folder stamped classified. Behind them walked a gray-haired Army colonel. The moment Emily saw him, every color drained from her face. Colonel Nathan Briggs. Her former commanding officer. The man who signed her retirement papers. The man who told her never to answer to Falcon again. He stopped in front of the stretcher. His eyes moved from Ethan to Emily. For several seconds he said nothing. Finally, he spoke. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter. I thought we buried that name. Emily answered quietly. So did I. Briggs looked at Ethan. Then back at her. I was afraid this day would come. Whitmore frowned. You know these 2? Briggs slowly nodded. I know exactly who they are. He opened the classified folder. Inside lay a faded photograph. 2 soldiers stood beside a burning helicopter. One was Ethan. The other was Emily. Both were covered in dust. Blood. Smoke. Yet both were smiling. Across the top of the photograph someone had written in black marker. Operation Black Falcon. Status, never declassified. Briggs looked directly at Whitmore. If Master Sergeant Ethan Cross spoke the word Falcon, then this hospital has a problem far bigger than a spinal injury. The hallway fell silent. Even the wheels beneath Ethan Cross's stretcher seemed to stop rolling. Colonel Nathan Briggs held the old photograph without speaking. Dust. Smoke. A burning helicopter. 2 exhausted soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder after surviving what every report had listed as a fatal mission. Dr. Sarah Whitmore looked carefully at the image. You've served together. Briggs nodded. They didn't simply serve together. They saved 34 civilians. And 6 operators. In less than 43 minutes. Emily lowered her eyes. Colonel. Don't. His voice remained calm. You've spent 6 years pretending that woman no longer exists. Whitmore looked at Emily. You were special operations? Emily hesitated. Finally. Combat medic. Briggs smiled faintly. That's the shortest description of pararescue I've ever heard. Marcus frowned. Pararescue? Briggs turned toward the residents. Air Force Special Warfare. The people sent when everyone else says recovery is impossible. No one spoke. Dr. Holt folded his arms. Impressive resume. But irrelevant. Briggs slowly faced him. Is it? My patient has a spinal injury. Briggs stepped closer. Your patient survived something your chart doesn't mention. The blast that injured Sergeant Cross wasn't ordinary. Whitmore immediately understood. There was another mechanism. Briggs nodded. There may have been. He looked toward Ethan. The Green Beret watched every word. Still unable to join the conversation. still trapped inside his own body. Emily quietly touched the bed rail. You don't have to fight. His eyes shifted toward her. One blink. Always yes. Briggs opened another document inside the classified folder. Operation Black Falcon remained classified because intelligence recovered from that mission changed several ongoing operations. Whitmore asked. And? The explosion that injured Ethan wasn't conventional. Silence. It originated from an experimental thermobaric device. Marcus whispered. My God. Briggs continued. It produced pressure waves unlike anything we had previously documented. Whitmore immediately understood the implication. Meaning delayed neurological injury. Cannot be excluded. Exactly. Dr. Holt interrupted. Speculation. Briggs looked directly at him. No. Military medical data. There were 4 survivors. Ethan is the only one still alive. Emily felt cold spread through her chest. She remembered the fire. The collapsing warehouse. The impossible heat. The screams over the radio. She remembered Ethan refusing evacuation. She remembered carrying a little girl through smoke while he held the doorway alone. She had believed the mission ended there. Apparently, it hadn't. Whitmore closed the folder. Why wasn't any of this shared with civilian medicine? Briggs answered honestly. It shouldn't have remained hidden this long. Emily looked at him. So why now? He sighed. Because someone requested Ethan's classified medical archive yesterday. Everyone looked at each other. Whitmore frowned. Who? Briggs slowly answered. Someone inside this hospital. The hallway suddenly felt colder. Marcus looked at Holt. Holt looked away. Emily noticed. Very small. Very quick. Enough. Before anyone spoke again, a voice echoed from the end of the corridor. Colonel Briggs. A woman in a dark navy suit approached with 2 military investigators behind her. She showed her identification. Defense Criminal Investigative Service. Emily's heartbeat accelerated. The investigator looked directly at Briggs. We've confirmed unauthorized access to Operation Black Falcon records. Whitmore asked. From here? Yes. She handed Briggs a printed report. He read it once. Then again. His expression changed. What is it? Whitmore asked. Briggs slowly lowered the paper. The access originated from Dr. Benjamin Holt's credentials. Every eye turned toward Holt. His face remained calm. Too calm. That's impossible. The investigator answered immediately. The login was verified through biometric authentication. Marcus stepped backward. Holt. The neurosurgeon laughed once. A computer error. The investigator shook her head. No. We also recovered deleted searches. Emily felt something tighten inside her stomach. What searches? The investigator looked at the report. Operation Black Falcon. Delayed spinal degeneration. Experimental neural recovery funding. Department of Defense rehabilitation grants. Silence. Nobody moved. Whitmore stared at Holt. You've been researching Ethan. For funding? Holt didn't answer. The investigator continued. And one more search. Everyone waited. She looked directly at Emily. Emily Carter. The hallway seemed to stop breathing. Briggs slowly closed the folder. When did those searches occur? This morning. Emily looked at Holt. You knew who I was. He smiled. I knew there was more to you. Her voice became almost a whisper. You've been investigating us. I've been protecting my research. Whitmore frowned. What research? Holt finally stopped pretending. For 3 years I've worked on a military-funded spinal regeneration program. Marcus stared at him. You never told us. You weren't cleared. Briggs asked quietly. And Ethan? Holt looked toward the silent Green Beret. He was the perfect candidate. Emily felt her pulse racing. What do you mean? Candidate? Holt smiled. A complete spinal injury. Highly decorated. National attention. The ideal patient. Emily's eyes narrowed. And if he recovered naturally? Holt didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone understood. Whitmore took one slow step toward him. You delayed additional imaging. Silence. You ignored nursing reports. Silence. You refused consultation. Silence. Briggs' voice became ice. You wanted him to remain hopeless. No reply. Only the faint sound of Ethan's cardiac monitor. Beep. 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 Emily slowly turned toward Ethan. His eyes were fixed on Holt. Not angry. Not afraid. Determined. Then. Something happened. Marcus gasped. His hand. Everyone looked. Ethan's right index finger. Moved. Only a few millimeters. Barely enough to notice. But it moved. Emily smiled for the first time in months. I saw that. Whitmore leaned closer. Can you do it again? Ethan closed his eyes. Every muscle in his face tightened. Seconds passed. Then. His finger lifted again. Longer this time. Marcus whispered. That's voluntary. Whitmore nodded. Yes. Emily leaned close to Ethan's ear. I told you. You were never finished. A single tear rolled down Ethan's cheek. And for the first time since entering Walter Reed, hope became stronger than fear. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps bring more powerful stories like this to the channel.